A year and a half ago, the Sixers had to trade a disgruntled star in Ben Simmons for a whole package of players, one of which included James Harden. Well, here we are, year and a half later, and now we have to trade James Harden for another bunch of players. That's definitely going to shake up the NBA. We'll break that trade down as well as the Eagles season and Flyers season here on this episode of Sports Talk Philadelphia. Welcome back to Sports Talk Philadelphia. As always, I'm your host, Aiden Tuzinski, and we've got a full panel this week. Starting my immediate left is Shane Nolan. Shane, how are you?
I'm doing well.
And then I have Riley Kavchuk in the middle. Riley, how are you?
I'm great.
And at the far end, Mike Holden. As always, Mike, how are you doing?
Great. Eagles, best team in the NFL.
Yeah.
Be better.
Yeah, they're looking really, really good. And that win over the Commanders did feel very nice. Yes, it was a lot closer than a lot of fans would have wanted, only 38-31. But Jalen Hurts finally looked like himself. 4 passing touchdowns, 319 yards, 29 of 38. Just looked super good. DeAndre Swift, 16 carries for 57 yards and touchdown. And Devonta Smith, 7 receptions, 99 yards, also a touchdown. Mike, just when you see the passing performance for this game, it just looked like Jalen Hurts. This is what we thought of when we thought of Jalen Hurts last year.
Yeah, this is pretty much vintage Hurts, what we saw all pretty much of last year. And the final score definitely could have been much more. The 2 fumbles on the 1 and I think the 3-yard line definitely could have made it like 20, 30-point game. But yeah, Jalen Hurts, definitely his best passing game so far this season. And definitely one of the best of his young career. And I think the big thing is no interceptions, which he struggled with so far early this season with the interceptions. But he looked great. The offense looked great. A.J. Brown, who we'll talk about a little bit later, also looked great as well. Just probably having somewhat of an MVP-type season. But we'll talk about that in a little bit. But the offense looked good, but the play calling is still a little troublesome for me in the red zone. But hopefully they can keep it getting better. But we're getting a little late in the season now, but we'll see.
Yeah, the red zone offense definitely struggled, but Riley, it was really good to see Julio Jones get involved. First time since we traded for him that he got a touchdown. Smith caught one, A.J. Brown. This receiving core is finally looking like a very stable receiving core, which is good for the Eagles.
Yeah, especially this past game, comparing it to week 4 when they did play the Commanders already. It was a really close game, and it was a little scary watching it. But Hurts, forgetting about the injury, his left knee injury, he really showed out with or without the injury. You can see a difference between this week 4 game and then this past Sunday game. So overall, it was really good to come out with a win. Yeah,
and one of the biggest factors, like Mike said, A.J. Brown is just having a ridiculous season when you break down. He had 8 receptions for 130 yards, 2 touchdowns on Sunday. He's now the first player in NFL history with 125-plus receiving yards in 6 consecutive games, and already this season in just 8 games, 60 receptions, 939 yards, 5 touchdowns. Riley, we're seeing a receiver that we just haven't seen since basically Terrell Owens. Like, that's what A.J. Brown is playing like at this point.
Yeah, he's top 3 wide receiver. He's good. He's proud that he's good, and he deserved the title of making NFL history.
Yeah, and Mike, when you see what A.J. Brown's doing, when we traded for him, we were not expecting him to be this good, I don't think.
And I don't think the Titans were either. And this is something, I mean, you mentioned with T.O., I mean, this is something the Eagles really haven't had this type of receiver really since him. I mean, we've had some good receivers over the years, and we've had Deshaun Jackson, we've had Alshon Jeffrey, and we've had some good decent receivers coming, but definitely none on the level that A.J. Brown's playing on right now. And not even just A.J. Brown. You got Devonta Smith complimenting him on the other side as well. I mean, it's just that 1-2 combination is just great. But yeah, A.J. Brown to me, I think if you're going to put Tyreek Hill in the MVP combo, I think he should be up there too. I don't think he'll win it. I think it's going to be hard for a receiver to win it, but I think he should be talked about up there if Tyreek Hill is going to be talked about.
Yeah, it will definitely be interesting to see when the MVP conversation breaks down which wide receivers will be up there. I agree, Mike. I think A.J. Brown should be up there, but it will be interesting to see if receivers do get that sort of recognition that they just haven't in the past. And when you break down the standings for the Eagles, not only are they the best team in football, of course, they're also the best team in the division by a couple of games. They are 7-1. The Cowboys, again, they had their bye before the Eagles, so they're 5-2. Commanders now dropped to 3-5, and the Giants are 2-6. Mike, when you talk about the Eagles, just forgetting about the division for a sec, it's really, really important that they had this win, especially because the Niners have now lost 3 straight. And Dallas has also struggled a little bit recently as well.
Yeah, the Eagles, I said in the beginning, they're the best team in the NFL record-wise, and I think they are still the best team in the NFL. But this stretch of games coming up, these next 6 games, we thought it would be 5 in the beginning, but now we have the Seahawks who are playing good. That's going to be a tough matchup in Seattle. That's always a tough matchup with the Seahawks in Seattle. But yeah, these next 6 games, it's going to. It's good that they beat the Commanders and they beat these games. They should have won. They probably should have won that Jets game just for another win, but because you really need all the wins you can get. But coming up, you got the Cowboys and then the Bills, and it's a tough stretch. But we'll see what they're made of. I believe in them. We saw it last year, and I think they're really going to show that they are the best team.
Yeah, and it was really, really good, Riley, to see the Eagles get those 2 wins over the Commanders, because the rest of the division, like the Giants, are always a game where you feel like it could go either way at certain places. The Cowboys are the second best team in the division. So to get these 2 early division wins against the Commanders, be 2-0 before going into those tough 4 games, the Eagles have got to feel really good about that.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm excited for the Cowboys game as long as other Eagles fans, because the Cowboys are our favorite team to traumatize. But I feel like going into this game, it really can be anyone's game, especially right after Prescott and Lamb both had a really good game after playing the Rams. And after how we played with Washington, it's just in the air and unpredictable. But I'm still going to say they're going to have a pretty good game, and my bets are still always going to be on the Eagles.
Yeah, so before we get to those Cowboys games, there was some fans that were a little bit, I'll say, annoyed at the defense. Mike, do you have any concerns about the Eagles' secondary going into games where they're going to be playing really, really good quarterbacks?
Yeah, it's tough because it just seems like, at least with the Commanders, it seems like, to me with the Commanders, I think Eric Bieniemy definitely has the Eagles number. We saw it in the Super Bowl when he was with the Chiefs. I think he just really has the Eagles number for when they play them. But yeah, it is a little concerning, but I think that Kevin Byard trade is really going to help them out with their secondary. The slot corner is going to be a little issue as well. But hopefully these guys, it's really going to be healthy too. Hopefully Jalen Carter stays healthy. And I kind of want to see a little more from Nakobe Dean from the linebacker position. He's a good young player that we kind of expected to really take a big step this season. But yeah, we'll see. But there's still a very good defense, but there's definitely, they need to step it up, especially against these next few teams.
Yeah, and I saw Kevin Byard say something where we as a secondary needs to play better, and he just got traded here. So the fact that he's already has that type of mentality is really, really good to see for the Eagles, because they are playing a division rival next week in the Dallas Cowboys in a game that will be primetime on Fox at 4:25. The Cowboys are 5-2 this season, like we said. They beat the Rams last week, 43-20. They have now scored 30-plus points in 4 games. But the games that they've lost, they just haven't looked good. So, Riley, it sort of just depends, I guess, which Cowboys teams comes out that the Eagles will have to figure out how good they'll have to play.
Yeah, and I think they're doing a good job, as you said, like players recognizing players and like coming up with certain cues on how to go about the game. So, again, like I said, this couldn't really be anyone's game. We're just going to have to hope that defense comes together and hope they play good.
Yeah, I think, Mike, something that a lot of us want to look for is pressure from the defensive line. They had a couple key plays at the end of the game last week that just took a while to get pressure onto Heineke. If you can pressure Dak Prescott and force him to make mistakes, that's going to change the game completely.
Yeah, they need to, especially, you got CeeDee Lamb, who's having also a great season as well. It's with it really with any quarterback. But Dak Prescott is one of those quarterbacks where he's a good quarterback, but if you do get to him, he will turn the ball over, like we've seen the past couple years. So getting that pressure is definitely very important, especially for Dak Prescott.
Yeah, do you expect Jalen Hurts to have the same type of week this week that we saw last week?
I hope so, just because I think Jalen Hurts and Dak Prescott has only played once against each other, so hopefully that'll be some motivation. But I don't know if he'll have as good of his game, but I think it'll be good enough to win.
Yeah, and then before we wrap up, predictions for this week from you guys?
I say 24-21 Eagles.
Ooh, close.
Yeah, I think a close win too. I think like 24-17.
All right, I'm going to go 27-21. I'm thinking another high-scoring game. It will be very, very interesting to see. Again, this is the first time they're playing the Cowboys all year. They play them at the end of the year as well, so it'll be important to get this win. We're now going to go to the 76ers, who, as I said in the opening, had a very interesting week in trading James Harden for a bunch of different players. So Harden said that he wanted to go to the Clippers, did go to the Clippers. So the Clippers got James Harden, PJ Tucker, and Philip Porzingis, and then the Sixers got a bunch of guys, including Robert Covington, who used to be on the team, Nick Batum, Marcus Morris, KJ Martin, and a bunch of picks, unprotected first-round pick, 2 second-round picks, another first-round pick for next year's draft, and a first-round pick from the Thunder. Mike, we're obviously going to talk about the players and James Harden and all that. It was really good for the Sixers to get these picks, considering that they had basically nothing going into these next couple of drafts.
Yeah, this trade was a huge win for the Sixers. Not even, like you said, with the players' picks, but also I think just the fact that you're going to have next season so much salary cap. Even for this season, too. I mean, you're going to have so much more salary cap. I think that was one of the biggest things getting rid of James Harden was. But, yeah, those picks, they are later picks, so we'll see kind of how they play out. But I think for me the biggest thing is definitely the salary caps. And hopefully guys like Robert Covington and Nick Batum, they could play a role as role players coming up in the playoffs. So I think it was a huge trade for the Sixers.
Yeah, so early in the season, Riley, you made a lot of different remarks at James Harden. So what is your thoughts about this trade, and are you happy that he's finally gone?
Yes, yes, I am. I'm not upset that he got traded. I'm actually not upset at all at the trade. We got rid of 2 pretty old, washed-up players. And with or without James Harden, with the last games, you could see that our team is thriving without him. And I have no low doubts going forward on the season.
Yeah, and I mean, the rest of the season has gone pretty well for the Sixers. Their star players are playing great, both Maxey and Embiid averaging over 30 points. The biggest guy that's been surprising me is Kelly Oubre, who's just looked unbelievable so far, averaging 19 points off the bench. Riley, when you just look at the team, they've just looked more complete than I think most people thought they were going to be going into the season, even though James Harden hadn't played before he got traded.
Yeah, and that I want to give a huge appreciation notice to Nick Nurse and Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid is really stepping in there and getting himself and the team together. He's really showing why he's MVP. And also Kelly Oubre, during a preseason game, I had a little bit of doubts because he was passing the ball to the other team a couple times, so that's never the best thing. But he definitely has improved himself, and going forward, and him and Maxey, both young players, I feel like they are going to be very good to the team.
Yeah, and I mean, we know what Joel Embiid is. He's been the runner-up MVP 2 of the last 3 seasons, MVP last year. Maxey, to me, Mike, is looking like the superstar point guard that we were hoping he was going to be the last couple of years.
Yeah, and I mean, hopefully the Harden thing is kind of just gives him the free range for the rest of the season, and hopefully for the rest of his career as a Sixer. I mean, we've seen it. He could be one of the best offensive players in the league. Defense definitely needs some improvement, but he's definitely one of the young and upcoming stars. And I think him and Embiid, I think they can win, but they definitely need some more pieces as well. I do like the team that they have around them, but it might take a couple more pieces at the deadline. We'll see. Maybe Morey has a couple more moves. Maybe Harris gets moved eventually. But we'll see. But I do like how we're looking so far throughout the first 3 games.
And I mean, you mentioned the defense. Getting Marcus Morris is a huge addition to the defense, just the type of player that he is. And they have a lot of other aggressive players, in my opinion, as well. Do you agree or not?
Yeah, I mean, I think that losing PJ Tucker definitely, I mean, I think it's huge that we lost that contract, and obviously, like Riley said, he's older. But I think adding guys like Covington, who we've seen his defense, one of the better defenders in the league, and like you said, Marcus Morris too. So I think we're fine losing PJ Tucker. I think those guys will replace him as good as he can. I mean, he didn't really score much anyway, but I like the trade. I think those guys would definitely be huge come playoff time.
So one of the things that Sixers fans and people in the media have talked about with the Sixers is that they just haven't had a team comparable to 2019. And it seems like they tried building up to when they had Jimmy Butler and just never felt like it. Riley, I know that this trade doesn't bring in a Jimmy Butler-like player, but to me this is the most well-rounded team the Sixers have been since that year.
Yes, and it's only the beginning of the season. They have a lot of time to improve. They have a lot of time to showcase the younger talents. And back to the defense thing, Jaden Springer, this past 2 games when he played the Celtics and he wiped the ball right out of Jason Tatum's hand, and this past game when he had that rim defense, it was really good seeing that. So hopefully he gets more in for defensively. And a bunch of the draft picks that we're getting, they're all young and talented. And I feel like the young and talented is really good to bring this team together.
Yeah, that's something that Doc Rivers didn't really use, as the young and talented guys. So the fact that Nick Nurse is a huge change for the Sixers. Actually, the first game that the Sixers have coming up is against the Raptors, Nick Nurse's former team. They then play the Suns on Saturday, who just had a brutal loss to San Antonio, and then they play the Wizards Monday. Mike, this is a very interesting schedule, just sort of because of the teams they're playing, not necessarily record-wise, but the fact that you're playing Nick Nurse's former team and then a Suns team that just had that collapse. It'll be interesting to see how the Sixers do.
Yeah, these teams aren't great. The Suns are definitely one of the better teams in the Western Conference. But I think I'm confident against most of these teams. I think the Sixers have a good team. I think they're good. I just think they're just going to run into problems with the good teams in the East, like the Bucks, like the Celtics. I think they'll be a top 3, top 4 team, but I just don't think they have the star power to beat the Bucks. Especially, we see with Dame Lillard and Giannis, but we'll see. But these types of teams, the Raptors, Suns, Wizards, I think these are teams that they will beat. And we'll see with the Raptors. I think the Raptors will have a pretty bad season this year.
Yeah, I'm not saying the Raptors will have a lot, but rather there is something to be said for having an emotional return for Nick Nurse. And even though they'll just say it's another game, I'm sure some of the players are going to be hyped up for this one.
Yeah, especially we played them during preseason, which we won. So I feel like going into this game, just like this past game when they played the Trailblazers and the team saw Thibault, like that was like a cute little reunion. But now Nick Nurse seeing his team, I think it's gonna be like pretty similar. But I don't think it's gonna like drive them off the winning scale. I feel like they're still gonna be determined to win with or without knowing the team.
Yeah, and we talked about whether or not that they can play against the best teams. Mike, it was a very good sign that when they played the Bucks, they only lost by 1. Yep. And like we said, they haven't played a bunch of hard teams since then. But that is a game that you can at least feel confident going into the rest of the schedule.
Yeah, and maybe Tyrese Maxey just really takes that really next step and becomes a superstar that we kind of need pretty fast. But we'll see. In a 7-game series against like the Bucks and Celtics, anything can happen. We were 1 game short last year, and we have a whole season ahead. There's so many trades to happen. So we'll see. We're only in November. But yeah, it's very important to win these early games and be atop those standings early.
It feels like so much has happened already for it to only be 3 games into the season. But it is good that James Harden, in my opinion, is finally off the team. Just his contract was so big. PJ Tucker, I love the fact that you had a corner guy that could shoot threes, but he didn't make enough threes for him to stick around with that contract, and his defense was definitely falling more than the Sixers thought when they first signed him. So it was very good the Sixers got rid of him. We'll see what happens the rest of the season. We're now going to go to the Flyers, who have had a very up and down week recently. They first beat the Wild 6-2, then lost to the Ducks 7-4 on Saturday, and then lost to the Hurricanes in a very close game 3-2. We're finally bringing in Shane. So Shane, I'm going to start with the Wild win 6-2. Very, very good win for the Flyers.
Yeah, it was a very good win. Obviously they played good offensively, scoring 6 goals. They played good defensively, and Carter Hart was very good in that game. And in the third period, they were up 3-0. The Wild came back to score 2 quick goals to make it 3-2. And then you had the Flyers right after that. They looked a little shaky to start third period. That's why. And then they kind of kicked it in gear again and scored 4 more goals after that. So yeah.
Yeah, so they did look very good in that game. The one on Saturday was a little bit weird because they scored a lot of points, but Samuel Ersson was in goal, and he just does not look good. And I'm very worried about what happens for the Flyers if they continue to use Ersson as a backup, in my opinion.
Yeah, he didn't look very good, but also the defense just didn't look very good in that game either. You can't solely put everything on Ersson in that game because of the way the defense played. Right from the start, you had a turnover by Sanheim, and they scored on that. There was a couple of two-on-ones that he had to deal with. So, that didn't really work out. But, yeah, if Carter Hart was in net, they probably win that game since they scored 4 goals.
So, do you think that the Flyers, if the season continues the way they have, and it's been a very successful season, all things considered, from where they were last year, so far at least, do you think they look at trading for another backup goalie?
I don't think so because, the other day they sent Sandstrom down for a conditioning stint with the Lehigh Valley Phantoms. So I don't think so because they also have Cal Peterson, who they traded for over the summer. So if they want to send Ersson down or anything, they'll probably either bring Sandstrom back up or call up Cal Peterson. So I don't think they would be trading for a backup goalie.
Yeah, and then the Hurricanes lost. Frustrating, but still very good to see that they were competitive against a team like that.
Yeah, it was, because the Carolina Hurricanes are probably one of the best teams in the league, making the playoffs the past couple of years. They're a quick team. They're very good offensively, and the Flyers had their chances. So they could have easily won that game, especially because they went 0 for 5 on the power play, something that they kind of need to clean up.
Yeah, and one of the guys that's been very, very good for the Flyers has been Travis Konechny, who has been on the team for a while and has had a good season, but this is probably his best start to the season by far. He has 8 goals and 3 assists in 9 games, and also had 2 goals and 6 shots in the loss to the Ducks. Shane, what do you think is the biggest change for Konechny just from any past season to this year?
He just looks smarter when he has the puck on his stick. He's in previous years he was more giving up shooting opportunities when he had the opportunity to shoot the puck and passing them, and he's not doing that this year. When he has the opportunity, he's shooting the puck. I mean, last year he was the best offensive player on the team last year with 31 goals, 30 assists, and 60 points. So.
Yeah, so one of the things that's been talked about for star players, even Carter Hart's name has been mentioned in trade talks. You don't want to think about that because the season, like I said, it's been more positive than I think we thought. But if things do go south at some point, which it seems like it could happen, do you think that Konecny's one of the first pieces that's probably gone?
No, I think they're probably going to build around Travis Konecny. The way he's been playing the past 2 years, he's a player who you build around if you're in a rebuild.
Yeah, and just thinking about him, but I mean, there's been a lot of other guys that have really stepped up as well. Is there someone else that you have in mind outside of some of the stars that you think is just having a very, very good season so far?
Bobby Brink, the rookie this year, looks very good. He almost had a hat trick a couple games ago. I think it was in that Wild game. But yeah, he looks very good. He looks quick, and one of the problems that he had was with his skating. He didn't look quick. He just looked slow skating. But he's getting some opportunities to score, and he looks really well this year.
Yeah, so we're 9 games in, and like I said, we're still not really sure what to think of this team. But so far, what grade would you give the Flyers based off of everything you've seen so far?
As of right now, I'd give them a C. They're a rebuilding team. This is the way a rebuilding team's supposed to play. They're gonna play hard every game. It's just with the coaching staff, John Tortorella, the head coach. It's just the way they're going to play, and they're going to be competitive every game.
Yeah, and do you think, I mean, with Tortorella, you always assume you have a shot at making the playoffs. Is that something that you think the Flyers could think about if they keep playing the way they are right now?
I think they probably could because a lot of teams make the playoffs in the NHL, and I mean the Eastern Conference right now. It's kind of like some teams that are expected to be this year got off to a slow start. So.
Yeah, it'll be very good to see the Flyers hopefully build off the success they had. Now, we're now going to go into Fast Five, and the first time this year we're going to do Talking Baseball with Mike Holden. So, Mike, what is your baseball take so far?
All right, so we got the World Series going on. I know it's sad. It should be the Phillies, but it's been a pretty good World Series. At least the first game was pretty great. The Texas Rangers lead that series so far 3-1. But the big news this week, or yesterday that came out, was Adolis Garcia and both Max Scherzer are out for the rest of the series. Adolis Garcia obviously won ALS, LCS MVP, and he's just been on a tear this postseason. And that's a huge loss for the Rangers. But they won last night. Their offense definitely woke up without him last night. And former Philly Travis Jankowski stepping in for him. So good to see that. But yeah, so Game 5 is tonight. I think the Diamondbacks still are in it. If they can win tonight, the Rangers are not good at home. So anything can happen in Game 6 and 7 if they can win tonight.
Yeah, Shane, do you agree with that?
I don't know. I think the Rangers are going to be able to pull it off in Game 5 and win it in Game 5.
It'll be a very interesting Game 5. We'll see what happens. Mike, I'm going to go back to you. We've talked about the best team in the NFL after 7 weeks. Who do you think the worst team is after 8 weeks?
That's a tough one. I would probably go the Bears just because, I mean, obviously everything that's going on with them, their defense, their offense, Justin Fields is hurt, just a lot going on there. But also, I guess the Raiders, too, like there's a couple teams I can go with, but I would probably say the Bears. But then also you can probably throw the Raiders in there too, just for everything. I know we have a question coming up later on about them, but I would probably say the Bears just so far throughout the first 8 weeks.
Yeah, I'm now going to go to Riley about NBA predictions. Again, the season just got off to an early start, but do you have any prediction, final stuff, MVP? What are you looking at so far?
Right now, I'm really happy about the Sixers. I don't think they're going to excel as much as other teams, especially Nick Nurse is the coach, really good. My top 3 teams to look out for this season, I would say, are the Suns, the Celtics, and the Nuggets.
Yeah, so the Suns, though, had a very bad loss the other night. They were up by 20 and lost to the Spurs, who I don't know about you, but I think Victor Wembanyama could be Rookie of the Year, just the way that he's playing right now.
That's what I was thinking. I was thinking that for Rookie of the Year would definitely be Wemby. He's a fan favorite right now. Everyone, other teams, even over here, people are like looking forward to seeing him play and seeing how he advances over the years.
Yeah, one of the things that's also been talked about in the NBA this year as well is you're talking about not trying to rest too many stars. So I think fans, they want to see guys like Lemonade, they want to see Durant play. And I think that that's probably a very good policy to have. If it can be enforced, I guess we'll wait to see, right?
Yeah.
So we're now going to go, we were going to talk about the MLS, but there was something interesting that happened with the Raiders that Mike mentioned. So last night, just sort of out of nowhere, the Raiders decided to fire not only Josh McDaniels, but also their general manager. Mike, what was your take on this?
Yeah, I mean, after watching that game on Monday night, I mean, you knew it was coming. I mean, Josh McDaniels, that tenure it was not going well. I mean, if one of the best receivers in the league is getting one catch, I mean, something's just not going right. He looked very frustrated, and Jimmy Garoppolo just has not looked good either. He got benched. So just like how I said with the worst team, they're probably up there with the worst teams. They're a mess right now. They've been a mess for the past couple years, and we'll see how long it kind of takes them to get back on track.
Yeah, you mentioned Davante Adams. I don't remember ever seeing a mutiny with two stars and Josh Jacobs and Davante Adams did, just like completely overruling the coach. Like I just haven't seen that before.
Yeah, I could see over the next, well, I guess the trade deadline's done, but I think those are two guys that could probably want their way out in the offseason or next season by the trade deadline.
Yeah, and the other interesting thing is that the Raiders announced that Aiden O'Connell from Purdue is going to be the starter now, so we'll see how that goes. To wrap up the show, I'm going to talk about college football. Most people that watch the show know that I love college football, and I'm very, very high on Kansas after their huge upset win against Oklahoma. I think that something that really stuck out to me is the fact that they won this game having no passing touchdowns. All 4 of their touchdowns were rushing touchdowns. And then the fact that Oklahoma still played them pretty close and Kansas fell through. Kansas, as most people know, historically not a very good football school. They just were bowl eligible for the first time last year since 2007. They're already bowl eligible this year. They're something like 5th or 6th in the Big 12, which this is the first year the Big 12 has had 12 teams since the conference had realignment in 2013, I believe. So it is very good to see Kansas playing this well. I'm just going to be interested to see what the Big 12 looks like when Colorado moves over, because that's a team that's really struggled. And teams like Kansas, they're going to be on the up and up, especially with Oklahoma and Texas leaving for the SEC. So if they can keep the program as consistent as it is, this could be a team that we're talking about for a possible college football playoff team. But I guess we'll have to wait and see how that happens. That wraps up this episode of Sports Talk Philadelphia. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to check us out on Twitter and Instagram at Sports Talk LTV. We will be back next week to talk more about the Eagles. And, well, we'll figure out what other teams. We'll definitely be talking about the Union as well with their playoff run. So thanks so much for watching. Make sure to tune in next week.